In the gentle kingdom of Briarvale, where golden fields once swayed beside a living forest, there lived a kind-hearted princess named Willow. Her home wasn't a castle of cold stone, but a kingdom cradled by the wandering woods, a magical forest whose ancient trees could slowly walk, stretch their mighty roots, and rearrange themselves like a giant leafy maze. For generations, this living, breathing forest had been the kingdom's silent guardian, shielding it from harsh winds and the scorching summer sun. Briarvale thrived under its protection, a land of plenty, peace, and vibrant green. But one summer morning, a shadow of fear fell over the land. The people of Briarvale awoke to a frightening, impossible sight. The trees were leaving. With each sunrise, the edge of the forest stood farther and farther away, a retreating tide of green. The consequences were immediate and devastating. The lifeblood of the kingdom began to drain away. Streams that once babbled with clear, cool water turned into dusty, cracked beds. The birdsong that had filled the air with melody fell silent as the birds vanished, their homes now marching towards the horizon. The lush, green fields that fed the kingdom turned to brittle brown dust. A great and terrible question hung over every home. Why were the woods wandering away? No one had an answer. Not the wisest scholars, not the oldest storytellers. No one, that is, except for Princess Willow. She felt a strange and powerful connection to the departing forest, a deep, pulling sensation in her heart whenever she touched a wilting leaf or stepped barefoot onto the dry, aching soil. It was a feeling of loss, a quiet sorrow that echoed the land's own grief. One night, as a pale, silver moon hung in the sky, something magical happened. A mysterious path of glowing golden acorns appeared just outside her window, shimmering faintly in the moonlight. Each acorn pulsed with a soft, inviting light, forming a trail that led away from the silent castle and into the darkness. Driven by an instinct she couldn't explain, Willow decided to follow it. The trail of light guided her beyond the kingdom's familiar borders, deep into places where no human had dared to walk before. As she crossed the threshold into the remaining woods, a hush fell. The air grew still, and the ancient trees seemed to bend gently toward her, their branches reaching out not in threat, but in greeting. A soft rustling sound filled the air like 1,000 whispers carried on the wind, and in that moment, Willow realized she could understand them. It was a language she had never learned, yet knew perfectly, the language of leaf and root, of bark and blossom. This was her hidden gift, a secret she hadn't even known she possessed. Green speech, the ancient and forgotten ability to speak with plants and truly hear their feelings. And what she heard broke her heart. The trees were afraid. They spoke of broken promises, of a pact between humans and the forest that had been forgotten over centuries. They whispered of old, sacred groves being cut down for firewood and timber, of their hallowed roots being disturbed by plows and buildings. They felt unheard, unrespected, and unsafe. There was no place left for them to grow in peace. Their journey, they explained, was not an act of abandonment, but one of desperate hope. The forest was searching for its heart, the source of all its life and magic. The mother tree, the very first tree from which all others in the wandering woods had been born. She was their origin, their guide, and their last refuge. Filled with a new and fierce determination, Willow vowed to help them. She had to save her kingdom, and to do that, she had to save the forest. Her journey took her deeper into the moving wilderness, a realm of shifting landscapes and living wonders. She crossed rivers that sang mournful songs and scrambled over massive roots that rearranged themselves like bridges before her very eyes. She navigated through shadowed glades where delicate flowers, sensing her human presence, closed their petals in fear. The forest tested her at every turn, but her resolve never wavered. With every step, her connection to the green world grew stronger. At last, after days of walking, she found the mother tree. She was more vast and ancient than anything Willow could have imagined, her trunk wider than a house, her branches reaching up to scrape the clouds. But she was wounded, and her life force was fading. Her bark was cracked and scarred, not by age, but by sorrow. A deep sadness emanated from her, a grief so profound it seemed to weigh down the very air. Seeing this immense suffering being, Willow felt no fear, only a deep and overwhelming empathy. She fell to her knees at the base of the great tree, placing a hand on its rough, sorrowful bark, and there, in the heart of the dying forest, she made a vow, not as a princess making a royal decree, but as a guardian making a solemn promise from the heart. She promised to create a secret garden, a protected sanctuary within her kingdom where no axe would ever fall, where the sacred groves would be honored, and where trees could wander freely without fear. She promised a future where humans and nature would live not as master and resource, but as friends, as equals. As her sincere words filled the silence, a miracle began to unfold. A faint green light began to pulse from the roots of the mother tree. Moved by Willow's honesty and the purity of her promise, the ancient tree began to awaken from her long, sad slumber. The light grew stronger, spreading from her roots into the earth, sending a vibrant, life-affirming call throughout the entire forest. It was a message of hope, of renewal, of a promise finally kept. And the forest heard, slowly, joyfully, the trees began to walk back. They turned from their desperate journey and returned to their ancestral homes. The great tide of green flowed back into Briarvale, and with it, life returned. Rivers began to flow again, their waters sparkling and clear. Birds returned, filling the air with a chorus of celebration. The parched, cracked desert bloomed once more into lush fields of green. The kingdom was saved. From that day forward, Princess Willow was known not just by her royal title, but as the keeper of the woods. She ruled her kingdom not with crowns or commands, but with care, empathy, and love. She taught her people the language of respect, showing them how to listen to the whispers of the wind and the needs of the earth, and the wandering woods never left again. They remained a steadfast and magical guardian because at last, in the heart of a young princess and her kingdom, they had found a home where they truly, finally belonged. The story of Princess Willow teaches us a simple but powerful truth. Nature listens when we listen first. And that true leadership isn't about power or control, but about protecting and speaking for those who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you so much for watching this story with me today. If you enjoyed our journey to Briarvale, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious and be kind.